Hello everyone. A very good afternoon to everyone. I am Priyanka Parekh and I handle the HR vertical at Cunix Infotech Private Limited and have been associated with Cunix from past 1 year.
Hi, this is Rajendra. I head management consulting vertical and I love to solve people and business related problems.
You all might be receiving mails on daily basis which includes topics like crisis situation, working remotely, layoffs and salary cuts and so on. Currently, this COVID-19 situation has affected the business cycle of working for everyone. A business cycle has four stages: reservoir, expansion, peak, contraction, and trough. Almost all the businesses are at the contraction stage, where the business cycle has become slow. Until now, we used to focus more on the technicalities of the business part, but we hardly focus on the behavioral aspects, on the functioning of the businesses, which is very important as now we are working remotely and we understand the importance of behavioral challenges. Today, in this webinar, we are going to highlight behavioral challenges to delegation.
In our next 45 minutes, we will be discussing about consequences to the organization if they are not delegating well enough, some statistics, some thought-provoking statistics reinforcing our thoughts regarding importance of delegation for business growth. Our misguided beliefs which convince us that we should not delegate, and the behavioral issues emanating from those misguided beliefs. So we hope you are all set for next 45 minutes.
What does this picture show us? Well, the picture is divided into two parts, where the first part talks about the leader doing all the work alone and do not believe in delegating the work to anyone. Therefore, the burden of completing all the work comes on him. Whereas the other part of the picture talks about the leader delegating the work to the employees and shows a balance between the work done, where the employees had played a major role in completing, and the burden was not only on the leader. Similarly, effective delegation not only changes the leadership perspective from managing tasks and processes to coaching employees to succeed in their roles, but also, when done effectively, delegation has many benefits. Besides enabling you to be your most efficient, it allows you to develop future leaders, share your experience, build trust and relationships, expand other skills and expertise, and most importantly, support succession planning. So, why isn't everyone doing it? Let's start by knowing what happens when you don't delegate. So, here are a few of the reasons which shows that what happens when you don't delegate. First one, losing the competitive advantage. Here, the competitive advantage means that because of some of the established synergy between the resources, the organization is able to perform better than the competitors. Example, human resources is the key among those resources, but what if it does not is not developed because of the lack of the delegation? Then over a period of time they will not remain competitive and the synergy between the resources will be lost and the organization will lose its competitive advantage. Secondly, choking the leadership pipeline. If an employee looking at the past performance gets promoted to the next level, looking at the skills and the competencies he has, but what if that new employee doesn't know how to delegate the task to his juniors, doesn't know the process of delegating? Then maybe he will end up delegating the wrong task and it will create a choke in the leadership pipeline. Third, destruction of engaged work culture. If the leaders don't delegate some of the part of the strategic project to its employees, there will be no new learning opportunities for the employees, and therefore the engagement as a work culture will get disrupted. Last, increased conflicts. When the work is not delegated effectively, keeping in mind whom to delegate, it leads to misunderstanding, burden of work, non completion of work, which further leads to conflict within the team. Also, survey shows that 40% of the time of the leader goes in resolving conflicts. I know it is very difficult to avoid conflict, but it can be managed and dealt well if one knows how to manage conflicts. To know more about conflicts, join us for our next webinar on conflict management.
Here are some statistics which throws light on the importance of delegation, and these statistics are very reinforcing in nature. We did our secondary research and found out that for small and medium business owners, 53% of them believe that they can grow their business by more than 20% if and only if they delegate 10% of their workload to someone else. Now, imagine that they are delegating only 10% of their workload and they are generating 20% more business. Amazing, isn't it? There are some other statistics which shows the demand, the need of delegation. Only 15% of business leaders say that they delegate everything they should. On the contrary, hoping 80% agree that they need help to achieve successful delegation. And that's where our today's subject matter is of extreme importance.
Well, you all might be wondering why I am going to talk about the belief when it comes to delegation. But as we are going to talk about the key behavior issues while delegating, so comes the belief with behaviors. As it is rightly said, our beliefs shape up our behavior. There are times when you have the belief that no one can do as better as I can do, therefore, you behave accordingly and don't delegate the work. You believe that I should be able to do it all by myself, and that reflects in your behavior in the form of fear of not delegating the work. Here are a few more misguided beliefs that I just spoke about. So, for example, when we talk about the last box, it shows that it takes too much time to explain, follow up, and get the quality I expect when I need. There are some kind of leaders who act very impatient because they want all the work on time and they can't wait much. So this shows that they are very impatient and therefore they don't delegate the work to their employees and do it by all themselves. Okay, so now let's hear it from you all. Our comment section is open for the responses. I would delegate more if I. Okay, I have started receiving few responses. Okay, so the first one talks about trusted my colleagues. Okay, well, that's right. Knew how to delegate. Wasn't so controlling. Had a hard time to think about what to delegate. Okay, well, these were very good responses from the participants. Thank you all. So these all signs shows that there are too many behavioral issues when it comes to delegating the work.
Priyanka has just discussed about misguided beliefs, and beliefs guide the behavior of individuals. Now we are going to discuss top 5 behavioral issues which are emanating from the beliefs which Priyanka has discussed in last slide. We will start with conscious to self-image. Self-image, what does it mean? It means that you think what you think and how you think about and view, how you think and view about yourself. We shall discuss this in detail in some time. Another big issue is micromanagement. Micromanagement is right now a real bone of contention. Right, those works in favor, but when that crosses limit, it is very, very hard to identify. Envy, another big behavioral issue. It happens when a manager is threatened by the persona, talent, or connections of reportees. It happens majorly because the manager is not clear about their own job or role. Lack of patience and lack of trust are very common behavioral issues which hinders effective delegation. They exist at various levels and of course for various reasons. We shall discuss all of them in detail here. However, please understand that with this webinar, we want to introduce you to these behavioral issues. How to improve it on these behavioral issues if altogether is a different subject matter. Improvement in behavioral issue comes with a very right mix of feedback, coaching, mentoring, and training over the period of time. We will start with conscious to self-image in detail. We had a client from IT sector, a software development company, and they had promoted an individual contributor, the software developer from the technical team to managerial level, that is project manager. Let's, for our convenience, we call him Rachit. Client has given all trainings to him to perform in managerial role, but delegation is still remained huge challenge for him. When a client discussed this issue with us, it was already 6 months that have passed for Rachit being in his role. We interviewed Rachit and his reportees. We found out that when Rachit was individual contributor, he and his colleagues used to think and discuss amongst them that managers offload all the work to them and they themselves do not do anything. This belief was so deeply ingrained in Rachit that when he became manager, he thought that now if he will delegate the work, he will be looked upon as someone who doesn't want to do work but uploads it. And that's where he was very conscious about his image. We worked on a coaching assignment with him and tried to reinforce the belief that he is not uploading his work. But on the contrary, he is helping his reportees to do the work in a better way. He was working as an enabler in distributing the right kind of work to the right set of people, and he is working to improve the performance of the individuals. Things changed in next 4-5 months, and we saw significant improvement in performance of Rachit, and things improved from there. So uh, this is a big problem, very difficult to identify, but it is a challenge to the individual as well as the organization, that how to break that self-image. Now moving to next topic of micromanagement. This image says it all. I would like you to be more self-reliant, show more initiative, and take greater responsibility. But check with me first. Amazing, isn't it? Now let's understand from you all that how at some point of time you realized that you are getting micromanaged. We shall wait for your response for a minute or so. Okay, we have started getting some responses. Okay, one response is manager focus too much on small things. Very nice. Not allowed to make decisions. Very good. Correct. No actions on feedback. Mhm. Constant complaint. Okay. Again, no decision making power. Okay. Manager was nagging. Okay. So we are getting some responses which does show that you could identify the that when you were getting micromanaged, those were the signs of micromanagement for you. So probably now in shoes of manager, you will understand that what not to do. So there are some tips for you to avoid micromanagement. Okay, now first point is self-reflection. If we try to explain it in a very simple way, it is a way of assessing yourself. Behavioral sciences have given us tools for self-reflection, and we work with our clients on those aspects and help them. They are what they are doing. Are they doing what they're supposed to do? These are the questions that they probably answer to themselves and create a better environment around them. Then comes the feedback. You should seek feedback. Most of us do shy away, even at very senior positions, in taking the feedback. We have a fear that we may hear something which we don't want to hear, isn't it? Uh, because that is going to reinforce our belief, or that is going to be against our belief that I know everything, I do everything right, correct? So at very senior positions also, we don't want to take the feedback. And that's the exact reason that our reportees do not give honest feedback to us directly. They have obvious reasons to fear a backlash. You need to involve third party who are independent, truly independent, should be seen as independent as well in taking the feedback. Third and most important, prepare a development plan. Prepare a development plan for you, for yourself, and for the people in the organization reporting to you. You need to keep on updating this development plan. That will make you understand that how you and your people are progressing in new roles. If suppose there is a situation that your some of your team member or a team member is not moving ahead in his or her current role, you may check, but the reason may lie with you, not them. Being objective is very difficult, isn't it? But I suggest do try once. Now we'll move to another behavioral issue, which is lack of patience. Lack of patience emanates from the belief that it takes too much time to explain, follow up, and get the quality I expect when I need it. You need to be patient because you need to understand that somebody was patient when you were on your development path. We generally overlook that contribution, right? There has to be clarity in your reporting line that your job is not to do work but getting the work done, and your people are at various stages and may take varied amount of time to produce the output. It is you who has to take all the pressure from the top, and you have to set the right expectation to the top. You have to be very clear on what your higher ups think about your job responsibility. They should be clearly telling that your job responsibility is to get the work done, to develop the people, and that's what you're doing. And the cushion which is needed, the cushion against the expectation of your higher ups, you need to develop that cushion. You need to absorb that pressure. It is very important for your team. There are obviously other needs like leadership pipeline needs as well. You are contributing with your role in keeping that pipeline flowing. But if you will not create right environment and not give that amount of time to your people to develop, there's a chance of choking of this pipeline. You yourself become the reason by being an impatient leader for choking this pipeline. Third point, aspects of emotional intelligence. It is very critical. Understanding what is emotional intelligence is also very, very critical. Emotional intelligence is one of the top future skills that managers will have to develop. It is touted as one of the top and is going to stay for some time with us. Managers are anyway short of their understanding of emotional intelligence. And suppose if it is coupled with lack of patience, it will create a hugely disengaged workforce. And you are not going anywhere ahead with your disengaged workforce. Over to Envy.
Okay, so before moving forward towards the fourth behavioral issue, let me know from you all that do you face any kind of envy at workplace? A comment section is open for that.
Priyanka, over to you.
Yes, so before moving forward towards the fourth part of the behavioral issues, I wanted to know from you all that do you face any kind of envy at workplace? A comment section is open for that. Okay, so I've started receiving a majority of yes from the participants. When I talk about envy, so envy is a normal phenomenon, but be it at workplace or personal life. At workplace, we generally experience envy at the same position between the co-workers. But have you ever heard about the leaders envying their employees? That's strange, right? According to the research, it shows that even though being at a senior position, leaders become envious of their employees and that envy can harm workers and damage the growth of the company. Below are the few examples that leads towards downward envy. First, employee has greater leadership potential. If the leader feels that the employee can perform better than him and soon be at the senior position, that creates envious and stops him to delegate. Next, close relationship with the senior management. If the new employee within a year of job has maintained some close relationships with the senior management team, the leader will envy and will not feel like delegating the work. The leader feels that maybe the senior management will support that new employee and not support the leader, which creates enviousness. Next is strong friendship network at office. If the employee has built a good amount of camaraderie relationship with everyone in the office, then the leader gets envy for the support that the employee will receive from everyone. Ability to outperform. Leaders have the fear of their employees outperforming the strategic activities better than them. There would be some kind of employees who would be performing or giving some good amount of outputs better than their leaders. Therefore, that will create an envy situation for the leaders. Last, talks about the source of innovative ideas. The employees can perform better by generating innovative ideas in creative ways can make the leader envy to delegate the work. There are few people who have innovative ideas and can do the work in creative ways. Sometimes this becomes one of the reasons for the leaders to envy and not delegate the task. The last part of the behavioral issues talks about the lack of trust. Phrases from the leaders that some of you might have heard in the past, or perhaps you have been uttered them yourself. I just can't trust my team to complete the job to the quality I expect. Deadlines always seem to be a moving target with my team. I seem to be on a different wavelength with my team. I say one thing, but they hear another. I don't always see or feel a sense of teamwork. We seem to be a collection of individuals rather than a unified team. Do any of those sound familiar? All of them can point to a lack of trust between the leader and his team. But have you ever paused to consider why don't you trust your team? It may not have anything to do with them, but it might be you yourself. Trust doesn't just happen at workplace. It takes intentional effort. And in a team setting, it's up to the leader to cultivate the right environment to trust to flourish. If you find yourself not trusting your team, then you can explore these three areas. First being trust signal. Trust is developed through the use of specific behaviors and based on a complex set of variables. So, when I talk about variables, to name a few, those are our personality, early childhood upbringing, past experience, and our values. So, each one of us is tuned into certain behavioral signals that communicate trust. The challenge in a team environment is every person can be tuned into different trust to someone else. It's important to establish a common language of trust so that everyone is picking up the same signals. And one of them thing is ABCD model of trust that provides a common set of trust signals for everyone to use. ABCD stands for able, believable, connected, and dependable and helps to understand how much you are able, believable, connected, and dependent on your employees while delegating. All the elements of the model are equally important while delegating the work and are dependent on each other. We do some kind of trust building activities based on the ABCD model. To know more, you can contact us. Next, talks about the misaligned expectations. Many a times, the reasons leaders don't trust their teams is they haven't done a good job of clarifying expectations. Leaders often assume the team knows the importance of goal, the quality standards expected, or the deadline for completing the work. When the team doesn't perform as expected, the leader jumps to the conclusion that the team can't be trusted and therefore he does all his work by himself. Last but not least, talks about the lack of vulnerability. Too many leaders are closed books when it comes to relating to their teams. They are distant and detached, both physically and emotionally. That leads to team members always playing a guessing game as to what the leader wants. People can't do their best work when they don't know what to expect from the leader. The cure is for the leaders to be clear on their leadership point of view. It's a statement of why you lead, what's important to you as a leader, what your team members can expect from you, and what you expect from them. So here's the lack of vulnerability shows that the trust issues take place. If the leader is clear on his side and the point of view that he wants to throw, then definitely there wouldn't be any kind of trust issues and the effective delegation takes place properly. These were some of the behavioral challenges to delegation that affects the employee development and hampers the overall organizational growth. We provide effective delegation trainings and executive coaching services to organizations to overcome these challenges. To know more about the trainings and consulting services, connect with us. Thank you so much for all for attending the webinar and have a nice weekend. Our comment section is open for some of the Q&As that the participants would be telling us. Okay, so I have received one interesting question from the participant which talks about what can be the tips to avoid downward envy. Okay, well, that's a very nice question. So some of the tips can be managers, when I talk about specifically leaders, should have a clarity with the management that what job responsibility his is there in terms of completing the work. If the leader himself is clear about his own responsibilities, it will help him to delegate better, and it will help him to understand what not and what to delegate to the employees. Secondly, it is also very important for the leader to understand what are the job responsibilities of the employees that they handle. If they're aware about the responsibilities in a two-way manner, then it becomes a very smooth way for delegating the work. Lastly, instead of getting envy, the leader, it is a responsibility of the leader to show a career path to the employee so that the employee development takes place, and therefore there is a strong leadership pipeline that happens. Okay, I have another interesting question which talks about, is micromanagement good or bad? Rajendra, would you like to take that question?
Sure, Priyanka. So what I would say that micromanagement as a word has a negative connotation attached to it in our management circles. It is always believed among the people that micromanagement is bad, but to understand more about it, which we do in our delegation workshops, we talk about situational leadership. So situational leadership says that employees have different life cycles and they have different needs at those life cycles from their managers, or their managers should treat them in that very way at their different life cycles. And there are clear signals and clear measurement tools to understand that at which stage they are. Now, if they have just joined and they are new and they are learning, and that concept has to go down well, manager has to micromanage. But it becomes bad, and as I told in the beginning as well, that there is very thin line. We generally not able to differentiate between a good micromanagement and bad micromanagement, and when we cross that line is when we try to start to control our reportings. So when till the time we are developing them, this is okay, but once they are developed, by that time we have a habit of controlling an individual. And once when we start controlling an individual, it becomes bad. So we have to be very very conscious and very very clear about it, that at what instance we are developing an individual and where we are controlling.
Thank you, Rajendra, for answering this question.
Thanks, Priyanka.
So we have a few questions lined up more, but as we are running short of time, we would definitely answer it to you via mail. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Rajendra.
Thank you and have a great weekend ahead. Thank you very much.